Okay, let me make sure everyone is here. Not everyone is here. I'm assuming we're waiting for the chief. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you there all along? Okay. Welcome everyone to the Public Safety Emergency Management Committee meeting today, December the 2nd. I will call the meeting to order. Can I get an approval to start the meeting? Thank you. I would like to say a couple things now that we are on. Please, everyone that is on this meeting that is a community member or not speaking in terms of those that are on the committee, please mute. We did have a problem the last meeting, so I'd like to make sure that you're all muted. The second thing is I wanted to make sure everyone understood that our committee meetings are not meetings that we accept public comment. You are more than welcome to do public comment during our council meeting. And we did have an announcement sent out that gave you a link yesterday to sign up for comment at our council meeting, which starts at 5 o'clock. So given that, I'm going to go ahead and start our meeting. And I don't see, hold on one second here. Okay, no minutes. I don't know. I don't think we had a meeting. If we did, it's been a while. So I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Des Moines Police Chief, Ken Thomas. And Ken, if you want to take us away to your Pacific Highway South discussion as well as your plan of action.
Sure, I will. Thank you, by the way. Good afternoon. I will give a brief overview. I won't just read the plan that I had sent out to the community, but I'll give you a brief overview of kind of what we're going to do and talk a little bit about the regional meeting that was held yesterday, and then some information moving forward, and then be available for any questions should you have any. So basically, we are doing this as this project is a 5-prong approach. And as I've told the detective that I'm reassigning from our detective division to work on this project directly, this is likely a 1 to 2 year project at least, to get the desired results that we want to accomplish. So we're taking a 5-prong approach. First, we are in the process, and I believe oral boards are next week for behavioral health workers. We are going to hire 2 as quickly as we possibly can, get them trained up, and get them deployed out onto the streets to help get those in need with some resources and work to help clean up this area. I can tell you one of the agencies involved yesterday at our meeting was the Port of Seattle, and their commander who attended offered up their newly hired behavioral health worker also to be out onto the street to engage, as well as the city of Kent announced that they are in the process of hiring 2 behavioral health workers by January 1st. So we should have up to 5 behavioral health social workers available to be up on Pacific Highway South to get those that are homeless or drug addicted into services. Code enforcement. I've had some very good conversations with Corey Batterman, our code enforcement officer. I think a really significant part of this project is to work not only with Corey, but the City of Kent Code Enforcement is going to engage businesses in their city. We are going to engage businesses in our city and utilize code enforcement to clean up the area and work to come up with some good approaches to clean up that area, whether it's through crime prevention, through environmental design. Detective Kevin Montgomery is the detective that I'm going to assign to this project, along with Detective Randy Gallagher, who's also part of our ATF task force. And as I mentioned to Detective Montgomery several times, because he needs a lot of information. He's that kind of a guy that needs a lot of information. Essentially, we're going to engage in problem-oriented policing solutions along with code enforcement. And that's what's going to help us sustain positive outcomes for this project. High visibility traffic emphasis and patrol is the next strategy, or the next prong. We need to not only have a presence up there, but have people seeing that there's a presence. The purpose of that is to deter criminal activity, number one, but number two, to let people know that we're up there, be highly visible, let them see us, and hopefully that will give an improved sense of safety and security for our community. Next is gang, gun, and drug investigations. And I'll go into that a little bit more in depth, but a lot of that will be done bigger long-term cases by our federal law enforcement partners. And then finally, the fifth prong is the community role and communication. We do need to really make this a partnership where the community is holding their fellow business members accountable to ensure that they do their part to follow the crime prevention recommendations, code enforcement, compliance, and really working together with each other, with the police departments involved, and then communication. The big piece of that is we need to have a robust communication with the businesses along Pack Highway and those neighborhoods that are just off of Pack Highway that are impacted by these this activity that's been going on for far too long. So as I mentioned yesterday, we attended a meeting with the players involved in this. Present were the City of Kent, Renton, Federal Way, SeaTac, King County Metro, Sound Transit, Washington State Patrol. And we had representation there from the leadership of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Special Agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations. So I met this afternoon with the U.S. Marshals Service. So I can tell you every federal law enforcement agency in Washington State that are stationed out of Seattle are going to be actively engaged and involved in this initiative. Essentially out of that meeting, there's going to be, generally speaking, and I'm not going to go too far into our tactics or procedures, but there's two main themes that we're going to make the approach in addition to those the five prong, and that's a uniformed operations, and a Kent assistant chief is going to head up the uniformed operations and emphasis patrols and traffic activity up there. And the Des Moines Assistant Chief Mark Cooey is going to coordinate along with the FBI intelligence group, the major investigations and intelligence aspect of this overall operation. And I say that because it is much of the crime and violence is drug and gang related. And it's not just along Pacific Highway South. It's people from Renton, Federal Way, Kent, Des Moines, the entire valley, Seattle, Tacoma. It's a widespread, significant issue, and we need to weed it out of that area. There has been some discussion about the new reform laws and the legislature, and I just want to briefly hit on that. That will have an impact on traditional policing tactics in how we're used to handling these types of situations. I can tell you, we are not going to allow that to be an excuse. That is the law of the land, the police reforms. We're hopeful that there's going to be some a little bit of movement and change in some of those. However, we need to figure it out. I don't want that to be an excuse. I don't want that to slow us down. I don't want that to negatively impact our ability or responsibility to go up there and take a holistic approach to addressing the concerns, challenges, and problems that our communities and businesses are experiencing up there. So King County Metro was there. I'm told that they've already put in a work order to get the windows and maybe the benches taken out of the bus stop. So it's not an area that is created for a place for people to sleep or to do drugs or to do anything that's illegal. It still provides an opportunity for shelter to wait for the bus and get on the bus or get off the bus, but not be a place, a comfort place for people to sleep or engage in other activities than it was intended for, which is for bus activity. So Sound Transit Police Chief was there. They're going to be engaged and involved. King County Metro Bus Chief was there, and they are going to be engaged and involved. And I requested additional presence from their fare enforcement officers, and not so much to do enforcement of the fares, but to be a presence, to add to our presence in the area. So that's kind of my overview of what's going on, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Do you want to go first, Deputy Mayor, or do you want me to?
Oh, I got questions, but it looked like Michael had something to say as well.
Oh, okay. City Manager.
Thank you. And thanks, Chief, and thank your team for really outstanding efforts to coordinate with partners to address these issues. And I want to mention one other thing that the Chief and I talked about over the weekend, and that was on the community part to continue and to expand potentially the engagement of our block watch captains, and to have those neighborhoods providing information as to what they're seeing, what's happening, anything unusual, all of that, because really this is a time more than ever that we need the eyes and ears of the community to help us identify what's going on. So Chief, I appreciated your focus on community, and I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Couple questions, and I love your 5-prong attack, as you call it, or approach. So I'll ask you questions kind of specific to each. So when these behavioral health workers, will they work alone, or will you have them work as a team, or do they require officers, or is that a tactic you don't want to share?
Well, they're not going to work alone.
I
They're
figured
going to
so.
work. We're going to work in teams and or maybe with officers, especially as they learn and understand. I mean, we're here because there have been several people shot and the violence. So we're not going to rush to put some unarmed government workers into that area and expose them to danger. But our goal really is to work toward having those contacts be made and those relationships developed, and really the good work to be done by non-uniformed police officers, because what I have learned and what the data shows is they can be much more successful without a uniformed police officer there. And really that's our goal.
Okay. Did we invite Port of Seattle to be part of this too? I know that they've had some crime issues as well, and might be able to provide some services.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear him mentioned, is why I asked. And Federal Way, are they offering behavioral health workers as well, or they're still trying to assess what their resources are?
I'm not sure if they even have behavioral health workers.
Okay.
So I'm not sure on that.
You were mentioning that you were going to talk a little bit more about the gang and gun and drug investigation with the feds. So I wanted to hear a little bit more of that on that, if I might.
Yeah, every single drug or every single federal agency in Washington state, every one of the federal law enforcement agencies is going to participate. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. I'm certainly not going to give up our tactics or our strategies.
I respect that. The community role, is there some way we can put out a communication to them? Because my question is how can we have the community help us? And I know the block watches that you were discussing and reporting crimes and reporting, there's a lot of people that use Facebook or maybe give a gosh or an ah, but they don't take action. What are you thinking as far as resources to get these people engaged to make it a community effort?
Well, I know there's a loose knit group up there, the Midway Merchants, I think, maybe the meeting that you attended with Sergeant Kripe. That's a very good start. I think I was told there was 30 to 40 different businesses along the highway. And I can tell you that that is going to be part of Tanya Seabury, our community service officer's job. Her role is community outreach, and I'm not going to micromanage exactly how she does it. I'm just going to tell her to do it and make sure it gets done.
And I assume there'll be the neighborhoods bordering the Pack Highway too. There'll probably be communication. Correct. And
the block watches and others.
Assume coming from the city and the police department communication, maybe something joint with Kent and Federal Way and the other partners. I would assume that you probably have something in mind for that.
Yeah, we're certainly working together on approaches.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, as a council member and our council members, how can we help you?
Well, I think the support that the police department and me specifically have been given by the city manager and the council to support us in our efforts to work with our partners and work within our own department and our organizations. I think right now, getting a plan, putting these partnerships together and moving forward, we are going 100% in getting that going. So right now, just the continued support that we receive is really all I'm asking for right now. We're right up to the top on trying to put some of this stuff together. It's been a problem for that Pacific Highway South, quite honestly, has been a challenge for law enforcement and policing in the 33 years that I have worked in this area, but it hasn't been this bad. So we're not going to fix it in 2 weeks. We're going to start and we're going to try, but this solution is going to be a bit of a long-term, sustainable project that we need to do, and we're going to get on it right away, but we're not going to fix this issue right away. It's going to take some time.
Thank you. That's the questions I had, Chair.
Thank you. So a couple of things I want to ask about in terms of the community. I think everything else that you've outlined, I know as time goes on, we'll definitely have more meat, excuse me, around it. So your 5-prong approach, I'm sure, will give us more information as you continue to meet with your group, all the other agencies. How will the community be able to actually, other than calling 911, what other means will the community have to report? Or, I mean, right now, council's getting all the concerns related to crime, period, which is fine. We make sure that that gets passed on. Is there a special number? Is there a special email that they can send their concerns to? Or I know 911 is the best way when you actually see a crime, but most of us don't see a crime. I know that we drive past that area all the time, going north or south. But if you see somebody sleeping on a bench, that's not a crime. How are they going to report that? How can they report that so that it gets to the right agency in a timely manner? Because as time goes on, because of that geographic area up there where it's Kent, it's Federal Way, it's confusing. And maybe there'd be one website, I don't know, or one phone call.
Well, I think that's a good question. And I think that's part of what Tanya is going to be working on, to put together a kind of non-emergency reporting mechanism. So I wrote that down as you were speaking, and I think you bring up a very good point and a good idea.
Great, thank you, Chief. Then the other one is, I heard you mention Highline College briefly. Can you go back over what they're going to be doing? Or can they do anything? Can they come off campus and do anything?
I'm trying to remember what I said about Highline College.
I think you did. I could have imagined it,
I think you might have imagined it, but
okay.
It's going to be right at the transit center, and it's right in the heart of what's of the area that we're, it's just south of where this violence was occurring, and right. It's critically important, and we're very, very fortunate to have a great partnership with Highline College. But at this point right now, they don't have a specific role right now.
Okay, so, and I guess the reason why I was thinking about them is because they're right there. A portion of them are in Des Moines, and then a portion of them are in Kent. It's such a weird boundary. But I think overall, given the reality of what's going on, given all of the concerns that we've seen related to our emails from our citizens, and they want things done, they want safety, we all get it. I think what's really important is to continue to emphasize this is a work in progress. And as long as you've got your regional group together and constantly working in the same direction, I can see where we could actually see some benefit, especially from the visibility of having all of our groups work together related to driving around or walking or whatever you have planned for that area up there. Because as we know, all of this stuff is coming from, I shouldn't say it. Most of this is coming from the north to the south. It's been happening for 25 years that I know of. So it was right here on 216th to 223rd. Now it's 240th on down. It's just migrating. And it's like a cancer. You really can't pinpoint where it's going to happen next, but at least what you can do is make sure they know you're there. And I think that's extremely helpful. So I appreciate your ability to come up with a 5-prong approach quickly, but we know that this isn't the end all. So I certainly appreciate the reality and being realistic about it. And I'm hoping that, tonight at our council meeting, that can also be emphasized as well, because God only knows, none of us want to see anyone hurt, shot, or killed. And we don't want any of our communities to end up being targeted, which of course they are on 99, because it's a crime of opportunity. And it's like you said, there's not enough cameras, and I don't think we can ever have enough cameras, and you're not going to know who the heck's doing what, unless of course ATF knows. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief. Unless we have another question from Deputy Mayor or a comment from our city manager, it looks like, unless there's something else to bring up,
Chair.
Dan?
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, Chief, thanks for the report. I was, tonight at the council meeting, one of the business items is 2022 legislative priorities for the council. And I know on there under public safety, we talk about working closely with you and your department on ongoing public safety reforms. Is there anything more specific that we need to focus in on as a legislative priority? I know there was some good intentions with the reforms, but it's been pretty well documented that the pendulum kind of swung too far the other direction, especially related to some probable cause related things. I just was curious if we need to bolster our legislative priorities tonight.
I believe Anthony, we've been in some discussions, and Anthony's been a pretty big part of that. WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, are playing a significant role. Some of the police unions, and so we're trying to stay on a consistent path and not have too many people going too many different directions. So I would say for our city, Anthony Hempstead is doing an incredibly great job of representing us, as well as being very consistent with what WASPIC and the other potential reform recommendations are. So I would suggest we let that work its way through.
Any other questions or comments, Deputy Mayor?
I just a comment. Chief Commander Richards, Assistant Chief Mark Gooey, I just want to say thank you. I know this is one of the tougher times. You've probably been officers out there, and really appreciate your leadership in this regard. I can't tell you it, sitting there knowing that you're doing your job and what you can do, and feeling and fretting for our residents and their fears and everything else. I just want to commend you for what you're doing. And I will just want you to know that whatever I can do to support you as you move forward and what you might need and stuff, please don't hesitate to ask us. And I know you work with the city manager, but we want you to have all the tools you need to help us. And we understand it's not a light switch. This is going to be a process to improve the quality of life up on Pack Highway and in all the communities. So whatever we can do to help, please let us know. And thank you so much for what you've done. And thank you in advance for probably the lion's share of the work ahead.
Okay, with that, do I get a motion to adjourn? Second, so moved. Thank you all, and we'll see you at 5 o'clock.